You know, just to jump in, you and I have worked together for probably almost a decade. You've always been in the field working in the sort of nonprofit on the ground organizational model. I have been working with philanthropists, and we've had conversations like these many times, but it's never been like this. And so I'm hoping that we can tackle a few questions that I know I'm receiving on the philanthropy side and you are receiving on the nonprofit side about how to engage to be as supportive of Israelis as possible right now.
Thank you
Sound
so much.
good?
So important. We're getting inundated with requests, so please, let's do this.
Okay. So question number one that we are getting, um, people want to be generous. They want to know where philanthropy can be best utilized right now. What do you see as philanthropy's lane, and what are things that philanthropic dollars really can't do today in Israel?
Yeah, I think that's really important because philanthropy in general should be a catalyst for things to get into motion, where the government comes in and other agencies. I know Israel Bonds just sold a very large load of bonds to send emergency funds to the government. And what happens, especially during crisis, there's a big gap until the government's able to assess and create policies and release funds. So what's happening now, what we're seeing is a lot of the funds are going for immediate needs to really fill that gap. Many examples. I'll just give a small one. For instance, some of the families that survived the atrocities in the communities have been given places where there's hotels and food, some paid by government, some paid by private donors. But then they need a little more funds to survive the day-to-day needs. So that's being covered for philanthropy, for instance.
So would you say sort of the philanthropic dollars are helping to create sort of a speedboat, right? Like to help cut the line while the other governmental or larger institutional dollars are coming?
Absolutely, absolutely. A lot of the situations, like in the South, for instance, in Ashkelon, the city itself has to pay for a lot of things and ends up reimbursing the government. They just don't have the funds to do it. So 90 people's homes were hit by rockets. They needed to be uh, sent to a different area, a hotel, etc., and pay for buses. So philanthropy is paying those dollars, basically.
Amazing. So, point number one, put your dollars where they can be catalytic and quick acting. Yeah.
And I'll just add in the
Uh,
longer term, obviously, it will be catalytic for matching funds or for complementary things that the government gives, but doesn't give the whole 100%, maybe gives 80% of a new structure, a new strategic plan. But that we could talk about after the war and months and years to come.
of course. So the second question that I'm getting a lot from, people that want to be generous right now, yes, we understand we need dollars, but I want to do more. I want to volunteer. I want to, send items to Israel. I saw this checklist. Can I help? What are you saying to people who are coming with these other sort of non-financial questions? How are you responding to them, and what's your advice?
First, my most honest advice to people, it's not about you on the other side. It's about the beneficiary, the person on the front lines, the person that's been hit, the person that's been who's the victim, who's been through the incident. So first, we got to think about them first. The most urgent thing is dollars to fulfill these gaps. But there are other things one can do after you gave dollars and you gave more than you thought you could give. Then what you could do is there's different things. You could go and join. There's different efforts online to share the truth and make sure anti-Semitism is not growing. You can look locally. There's a lot of efforts of collecting goods and shipping cargo planes to Israel, but you have to make sure it's official and not scams, because there's also a lot of things running around. But the one thing you shouldn't do is not start calling people in Israel if it's in hospitals or local cities and asking for lists and driving people crazy, because they're on the front line, hour to hour, things are changing, rockets are falling, terrorists are roaming the streets at times, and it just creates more havoc. I've seen it firsthand. It's not helpful, to be honest. What you could do is start collecting it locally and assume there's obvious things that will always be needed, dry foods and canned foods, medical aid types of products, toys and games for kids to reduce trauma. You don't need to call anybody to ask if it's needed. It's 100% going to be needed over the next year or so. So if that's the effort you want to do, go for it. But then wait the 1, 2, 3 weeks till things calm down to find a way to ship it and get it to the right channels, which we can help with in the times right.
So you used a term, scam. Another question we're getting is, there are GoFundMe's and .orgs that have popped up overnight. These other things, people, I think are really compelled by some of these stories, but then they double click and realize maybe there's not something actually real behind it, like a real nonprofit. How are you helping people identify like what's a real program that you can fund versus what's something that you should probably, stay away from as a philanthropist?
Look, I'd recommend to people to work with places that they could see. It's not times where you could do a robust due diligence, let's be honest. But all organizations should have an EIN number. For instance, our EIN number has been working for 20 years and is very active, and so is many of the institutional organizations, for many years. You should go online, you should check it, just see there's a 990, it's a 5-minute due diligence. And there's a lot, I would say thousands of social initiatives. People came together, said, okay, we're going to buy vests for soldiers. We're going to get medical aid and start saying to friends, and let's donate. The problem with that is there's a lot of problems. You don't know who's behind it. You don't know how they're really going to activate it. You can't monitor it. So I would be a bit scared. I tell those social initiatives, and we're helping some of them, put it under an organization with an IEN, put it under an effort of one of these organizations that have been doing it for years, and work in partnership with them. It's not for you to do it. And there's also on the flip side, there's people that don't really know philanthropy, mean well. Giving an example, there's an organization that's really, really in need on the ground. They got a call, you're getting $1 million. So we went and tried to help and collect $1 million through our EIN because they needed a place to send it through. And then we found out it wasn't even $1 million, it was $10,000. The person that got the pledge didn't know how to ask the questions, but it created a situation where the people thought the money was coming. So I tell people be very, very diligent with where you give and how you give, but not over. Like you can't start sending an organization now in the middle of war 50 questions before I make a decision, send me A, B, C, D, E. You can, I believe, ask for an IRS determination letter. You could go online to GuideStar and check a 990 through an EIN number. It's very simple. And look maybe on the board of the site, and that's it. That's what I recommend at this stage. And of course, through people
That makes total sense. It's not that hard to attach to a nonprofit if you're doing legitimate work, and you know how to get this done. Seth said it perfectly. That's why it's so important to do that diligence and you know, DM me if you need help. We're always happy to help do that as well. So, GGC, Giving Group Community, the group that you founded and are leading and doing this work on the ground in Israel with, I would describe it as an agile organization, incredibly entrepreneurial, very little red tape. You get funds within hours, sometimes minutes, they're deployed, right? Like you are an extremely agile group. There's also larger institutional groups that have been around, and we can think of them. They have scale, they have a lot of people, they have a lot of reach. What would you describe as work that is best handled by an agile organization right now? And what is work that you think the institutional organizations really are best situated to serve as philanthropists are thinking about like where to put dollars based on what the activations are that they're hoping to support?
So it's always a big question. Someone sitting on the end that's, is not on the ground and doesn't really know. Both are important, I would say. And there's short-term strategy and long-term strategy, which we may talk about. But I think at the end of the day, if you want to get dollars to what's needed the most, that's what we're about. There's a few other organizations do that as well. We're speaking to the mayors, to the leaders on the ground of the emergency needs of the cities every single day. And we're getting WhatsApp messages. We need 1,000 hot meals today. We need 7 buses to send people out of the city for a week respite, whatever it is. So we're working off lists. And we're wiring funds every business day. What comes in goes out 100% of what's received. That's our approach on multiple fronts for victims of some of the communities that were viciously attacked, for people from the cities that are enduring rockets. In Ashkelon, it's 300 rockets that fell, that hit, direct hits, not intercepted by Iron Dome. And the needs are vast. And there's other grassroots initiatives, but they're with formal nonprofits that exist in Israel, like Ashkelon Foundation or like Enof Fakim that have been working for years, 30, 40 years. We know the people. That's us. So that's how we can commit. It's agile and fast, and we know exactly what it's going to. Look, on the institutional large organizations, some for many years, they're collecting money. Some they're beginning to trickle down as well. Some they want to do more midterm, some more long term. It's going to be needed as well. So you have to ask yourself as a donor, what kind of donor am I? Do I want 100% of it sent and sent quickly? Do I want to mix my portfolio, give some through here, some through here? And that's basically the choice of the donor.
All right. Last question. that I'm getting, quite a bit, and I'm sure you are too, immediate funds versus long-term funds. People are deploying capital. They know there's acute, desperate need today. They also know in the rebuild in years to come, it's going to be critical. How are you as an organization thinking about staging this work? We know everyone says this is this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. How are you and GGC thinking about that today?
Um, it's hard to think about that because we don't know how this whole thing is going to scale and escalate. So it's very, very challenging. We're really going this day by day, but from experience of doing this, I've personally been engaged in the South since 2007, since the first rocket hit Ashkelon. So we know there's things from midterm, like more bomb shelters, more emergency rescue vehicles, more security protective gear, and even things that could cost a lot more money, like protecting the whole hospital in the South that's been hit with 2 direct rockets already, and only a small percentage of it is underground protected. That could be 150 million. So there's different levels and different needs. And also, we still don't know at this stage what the government's going to fund and where the gaps are going to be. That's going to take time. So I tell people there's 2 ways to do it. Or you put all you can do now in an emergency fund and trust those with the emergency funds, like us or like institution, like a federation, your local, to know how to allocate what's really needed now and in the long term. Or put aside an amount, but you say, okay, I want to wait and see what's needed in a month or 2 and give more. But just understand now, people really need it for fixing shelters in the north, so to say, for feeding people or getting them out of respite, and don't hold too much. Hopefully more money is released. We're close to the end of year also, so hopefully other people have other income sources they could release. But these are times of war. These are times of distress, of danger for the whole Jewish people, and it's not a time to really calculate. Did I give my 5% this year? Not, in my opinion.
Yeah, and in mine too, which is why I respect you so much, and I'm so grateful to be able to work with you. Seth, final word. What do you want people who are thinking about how to be generous uh, to know right now, to do right now?
First, your money counts. Any dollar amount you give counts. After you give, you can share whoever you gave to, the details in the campaign with your friends. You could send individually to friends. You could put on your social media. You need to pray for our people, and you need to stay resilient and believe we will prevail, and we will stay resilient, and we will bounce back. Thank you so much, Emily.
Amen. Well, Seth, I think of the world of you. I've worked with you for so long. Um, we're working with GGC regularly. I appreciate you taking this time. I know how precious your minutes are, especially right now. And we wish you all of the strength so that you can keep doing this work.
Thank you, Emily. Be strong as well. Thank you.